All right. Ready?
Yeah. One moment.
Mhm.
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Kat,
And I'm SLee.
and this podcast won't run a week. Your bi-weekly musical theater podcast where we talk about musicals.
I thought we were talking about serial killers.
I mean, do you want to talk about serial killers?
Let's scrap the whole podcast and let's
What?
just talk about serial killers. Hi, this is Kat.
And this is Lee. And this podcast is on the run. We're two serial killers, gabbing and killing.
We're two carnies on the road.
Oh wait, no, we're two serial killers, gabbing and stabbing.
It's like in The Office when Dunder Mifflin rebuys Michael Scott's paper company, and he goes, I know how much my company is worth because I have a slew of names that I could call my paper company, and I can just continue to make more paper companies. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, you get it. You get it,
You get
Michael
it.
Scott.
You
Oh
get it.
man. Well, this week, this month actually, it's Sondheim's birthday.
Sondheim's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Mr. Sondheim.
To the king.
We are not worthy. We are not worthy. You and Dolly Parton equal in my mind.
Well, yeah, I'd say Dolly Parton has done a little bit more for humanitarian efforts, but yes.
I don't know. I mean, there are some songs that Sondheim has written that feel like a humanitarian effort to me.
Wait, that's fair. I'll give you that.
You know, like, ooh.
Yeah. I'm so excited for this month.
I mean, you know I am.
Well, I think we're equally as excited because you and I like grew up listening to Sondheim. It's like we unlocked a key very early.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we didn't, I feel like, and this is obviously no shade or no tea or whatever to people who do take time, I guess, to like unlock shows and to like really get into musical theater. We just like dove in.
I wonder, I'm trying to think of like when's the first time that it was like introduced to us. And I mean, I was thinking specifically because today, spoiler alert, we're talking about Sunday in the Park with George today. But my mom got me the DVD of the pro shot version when I was really young.
Yeah.
She would get me those DVDs every year of like different shows. And so I have Into the Woods, obviously. I have Passions.
Oh, that's
I watched once.
Yeah.
And Sunny in the Park with George, but Sunny in the Park with George was the one I watched the most.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't think I had other. And Sweeney Todd, of course. I had Sweeney Todd.
Of course.
But I'm trying to think of like what sparked our interest. Was it those DVDs, or was it me doing Into the Woods in 8th grade? Because it probably was around the same time, to be honest.
I think that it was like a chain reaction because I remember like over the summer watching Sweeney Todd starring Johnny Depp, Helena Bonham Carter, like
the classic
film, and being obsessed. And it wasn't, that was like all of our friends at the time. We were all like deeply, some more than others, and you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say some more than others. Well,
someone we don't want to name. Okay.
Someone we don't want to name. Someone who I will
Voldemort.
Edit out.
Voldemort in the flesh.
Yes, Voldemort. He who must not be named. But we were.
He listens to this and he's like, "Damn, they talk about me a lot."
Man, these bitches need to get my name out of their mouth.
Well, it's not in our mouths because we won't even say it.
Won't even speak it. Oh man. But I think for him to even know that this exists, he would have to like follow us on on social media. Like
kind of social media.
Yeah.
Not be so fucking petty.
Yeah, he can ask his wife. Maybe she'll let him listen to the podcast.
Get a Pokemon wedding cake. I think we're fine.
Oh my god. Anyway, yes, I think that it started with Sweeney Todd, the movie, and then like that fall, I believe, you did Into the Woods. And I only knew like a couple songs from Into the Woods. Um so like I kind of knew it, but listening to you talk about the show, I was like, oh, like I had never seen the pro shot until I think I watched it with you for the first time.
Well, because my mom got it for me when I got cast.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
no, Jessica, the preparer of all auditions, like she's the queen of prepping for auditions. She got me the pro shot to practice for my audition. So I knew the full arc of the story, even though we were just doing the 45-minute version. My mom said, you will be acting queen.
Yeah, Jessica says, audition prep. We're here for you.
Yes, audition.
Yeah, so I think it like started with that, and then I know that like I just slid right in there.
Yeah, of course.
Into all of, oh, it's so good. It's all so good. Truly everything he does. Even the frogs. I love the frogs. I love the frogs.
I do love that song, the opening number.
Yes, but I mean Nathan Lane and Roger Bart.
Can't go wrong.
You can't go wrong.
Yeah. You know what show I love and I think is severely underrated and hard to like get my hands on, honestly, is I don't even know the name of it. That's how underrated it is. No, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum.
Yeah, yeah. This is not an episode about If Anything Happened on the Way to the Forum, but what I love about that show is the main character, and I cannot remember his name, the one that Nathan Lane plays.
Oh, yeah. Like the MC, but then he also changes to some Greek god.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be played by someone of any gender. Any gender. It truly does not matter, and I love that.
Yeah. The head of my program, not my master's program, but the head of the whole school. We're taking a class with him now. We're doing Chekhov and script analysis in his class. He's from Russia, and like he's like a master translator of Chekhov. So it's a very interesting perspective on it. This is not a Chekhov podcast, thank God. I love Chekhov, but like I don't want to talk about it on a podcast.
No, okay.
But if you need me as a guest, let's chat about it. No, but he said, we were in class and someone said, I have two classmates named James and they live together. And he saw on their Zoom screen, because they take class together, obviously, it makes sense, right? And he looked at their screen and it said James and James. And then he goes, everybody ought to have a James. And I was like,
yeah, there it is.
He said, that's from a musical, right? And I was like, everybody have to have a working girl.
Oh man.
F-R-E-E.
No, the long way. F-R-E-E. Oh.
That's one of the best songs in that show.
Agreed.
I love that show. I mean, that song and that show.
Yeah.
I don't know the show in its entirety super well, but that's a Sondheim, right? He wrote the lyrics for it, or?
Yes, I believe that was just a lyric show.
Yeah, it's not a full Sondheim project.
No, I don't believe so, because it was around the same time as West Side Story, I believe.
Oh yeah, I forget how old that show is, because Zero Mostel was in the original.
And Nathan Lane came in the revival.
Nathan Lane said, Zero Mostel who? I'll just play all his roles.
Yeah. I'm waiting for his Tevye.
That would be horrendous.
But fantastic.
Oh
man. If I were a rich man.
Yada da 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 yabba dabba da. Yeah, that's what he would do.
Oh my god. Let's talk about the show that we're supposed to be talking about.
We're celebrating Sondheim's birthday by talking about his great accomplishment.
Everything he does is his greatest accomplishment. Like, Oh, I love it all.
Yeah, let's chat about this show. Sorry, I just
Oh,
got new contacts and my eyes are like, what are you doing?
it's like you're seeing in like 4D and you're like, whoa.
Okay. Yo, listen.
Yo.
Let's talk about it. Um, Sunny in the Park with George.
Hmm.
I'm gonna be harboring on that pro shot original cast because there is so much good in it,
Hmm.
and there's not a lot of other productions that have happened. There obviously are a lot in the sense of like there have been few productions, but in the scheme of like since 1984
Hmm.
and it being a Sondheim show, and when you think about like Into the Woods or Sweeney Todd, there have been very few productions of this show.
Yeah.
Um, Great. So, Sunny in the Park with George opened and ran about a year and a half from May 1984 when it opened to October 1985 with 604 performances. That shocked me. I thought it was going to run longer, but I
Hmm.
guess not. A year and a half, and most of the time it was uh, Mandy Patinkin was there from May until September,
Hmm.
um, and then came back to finish off the run, something like that, and then or August. Sorry, I have it written down here somewhere else. We'll get to it, but most of the run was Mandy Patinkin, and then Bernadette Peters was there for a little over a year or a little under a year.
Yeah.
Um, Beautiful. So a little bit about the history of this show before we get into it.
Hmm.
Following the failure and the scathing critical reception of Merrily We Roll Along in 1981, it closed after 16 performances. Sondheim announced his intention to quit musical theater.
Ugh.
He was going to quit because of We Roll Along's failure, which, nowadays we celebrate the show Merrily We Roll Along. Um,
I
it People love the music of it now, and like not that people do it all the time. It's a small show. It's for people, you know.
I think, oh, hey Seymour. No, but I think with Merrily We Roll Along, there is there's a better context for it now, decades later than there was at the time.
Mhm.
And I love Merrily We Roll Along. I think it's a really beautiful show, and I think it's a really beautiful look at, collaborators and friendships within the like artistic community. I
Yeah,
think it's great, but
but
people,
it was not successful.
no, not
In
at
the initial
all.
time. Yeah, not at all. So Sondheim was gonna quit musical theater, which is the saddest thing
Ugh,
of all.
yeah.
Um, because I don't think we had Into the Woods yet. No.
No,
Yeah,
no.
no. We
No,
just
if we didn't have Sunny in the Park with George, we didn't have Into the Woods yet.
yeah, yeah. Um, and we did have Sweeney Todd. But so James Lapine, who directed the original Broadway cast and also directed Into the Woods, and he was a big collaborator with Sondheim,
Hmm.
um, persuaded Sondheim to return to his theatrical endeavors after the two were inspired by the painting A Sunday Afternoon on the island of La Grande Jatte, I think.
Yeah, that sounds
La
right.
Grande Jatte. Um, Never studied French, okay? Give me some Italian. But the beautiful painting that inspires the entirety of the show, right? Like
Hmm.
that's our lens is this piece of art that everyone knows. It's the um George Seurat is George, and he is the painter that did the dot painting. And there's no long strokes, anything. The whole painting is dots. You learned about it in your
Yeah,
intro to art history in
little
elementary school.
a little pointillism never hurt anybody. A little.
This
Da, 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 da.
red, red, yellow, red, red, green. Yes.
Oh,
The painting is in the Art Institute of Chicago. Hey, hey, hey. And so the two spent several days at the Art Institute of Chicago studying the painting. Lapine noted that one major figure was missing from the canvas, the artist himself.
mm,
The observation provided the springboard for Sunday, and the production evolved into a meditation on art emotional connection, and community. And it's so funny because we'll talk about this later, but I did not read that full sentence. I skimmed it.
Mhm.
Nope. I didn't even like read that full sentence at all. And later on, I really wanted to talk about that, just to talk about like, oh, okay, it's like the Art Institute of Chicago is where it lands, and this is how they got inspired. And of course, he was not going to do musical theater. But
Yeah.
later on, I'll talk about the word meditation
Mhm.
after rewatching the pre-shot version as an adult. And I said this to Caitlin as we were getting ready to record. Watching this play as, I think, as an artist in general, is very different from watching it as someone who's just like an observer of theater and or like an enjoyer of art itself. But
Mhm.
this show is for artists, in my personal opinion. And rewatching it not only as an artist or as a more comfortable version of my artiste self. I know. I had to make that funny because it sounded very pretentious. um, but um, but a more comfortable version of my artist self now that I'm, in grad school and la. Also watching it as an adult is
Mhm.
very different because the language that surrounds it in my own body is very different than what I could access as a high schooler or middle schooler, right?
Yeah.
So the word meditation came up for me in in tenfold. So it's just interesting that is also the word they used. So all I'm
Mhm.
getting at is like, I'm really smart and I got that.
Yeah. You just What I'm saying is I'm the smartest person to ever live.
I mean, I just really am. I'm a theater critique. I should start a podcast about musical theater.
You know what? You should.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it after this.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just but honestly though, I think that is such a beautiful word for it. And I think we will talk about this later on, but they embodied that word meditation specifically in specific numbers, and it's obviously purposeful. um so let's get into it. um the show opened off Broadway at Playwrights Horizons, which a lot of his stuff opened at Playwrights Horizons, which I did not realize he was a collaborator there, which is very exciting to me because I love Playwrights Horizons.
This totally unrelated. I also love Playwrights Horizons. I saw a friend in a show there 2 years ago now, called Comfort Women, and it was garbage. It was so bad. That my friend who was in it, we like walked out of the theater together. We said our highs, and then we like walked to the subway together. Once we got the 2 block radius, he just
Ripped
tore
it apart.
it apart. He's like, I hate that I'm in this show.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so bad, but
Well,
yes,
you know,
they can't all be winners.
they can't all be winners. I mean, 12 Steps the musical, it was my Tony Award winning performance.
To Broadway, to
To
Broadway.
Broadway, to Broadway. Good God. Okay.
Sorry,
Um,
continue.
I promise no one who listens to this knows what that is unless I've actively talked about it to you. The show opened off Broadway at Playwrights Horizons, and it
Mhm.
starred Mandy Patinkin and Bernadette Peters. It opened in July 1983 and ran for 25 performances, which is typical for a Playwrights Horizons piece, unless it is like a play that's just got extended. It is a place where playwrights put up their shows and showcase what they do before they go on and do other things. You
Yeah.
know. Only the first act was performed, and even that was still in development. The first act was fleshed out, and work began on the second act during that time and completed the 2-act show. Um, the completed 2-act show premiered during the last 3 performances. Very interesting. Again, we're in workshops, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny to me that they don't call this a workshop, but they call it like an off-Broadway premiere. But it's clearly being workshopped.
Yeah. I don't know. I
Hmm.
mean, maybe because they were workshopping it for like a Broadway run.
Yeah, I guess like a Chicago tryout kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. After seeing the show at Playwrights Horizon, composer Leonard Bernstein wrote to his friend Sondheim, calling the show brilliant, deeply conceived, canny, magisterial.
Magisterial. Okay.
Okay, we use big words here, I guess. And by far the most personal statement I've ever heard from you thus far. Bravo.
Hmm.
More on that later. Kelsey Grammer played the young man on the bank and the soldier. I'm super interested in that performance. I really wish there was video footage of it.
Huh.
Um, and Christine Baranski played Clarice, who was later renamed Yvonne, who is the critics or the snooty
Hmm.
wife. The
Yeah.
yeah, the snooty man's wife is what I'm going to say.
Hmm.
But they did not continue to the production to Broadway. You know, whatever.
Busy.
Busy, booked and blessed. The play is of special significance for Chicago in the Surratt's. Oh my God, sorry, my eyes. The play is of special significance for Chicago in that Surratt's masterpiece, the backdrop of the backdrop of the play.
Bit by
Oh,
bit, putting it together.
yeah. Hangs in the Art Institute, like I said earlier. The Chicago Shakespeare Theater presented the musical in 2002, directed by Gary Griffin, in a more intimate 200-seat upstairs theater. In September 2012, Griffin returned to direct the play in a larger downstairs courtyard theater, where the lead roles were played by Jason Deneely as George and Carmen Cusack as Dot, who is
I'm
a favorite of mine. So that was
yeah.
very exciting. Also, I can totally see her playing this part.
Hmm.
Um, more on that later. Okay. So that's like the history of it. So let's get into the plot. Um, there is a lot of plot in this show. So I'm going to do my best to give a more brief synopsis of the A plot, rather than all of the B plots that happen, because they're not as
Hmm.
integral to the story. They're more of just like fantasies that George himself creates based on what he sees in the park and what is giving his painting life. Um, Again, more on that later.
Yeah.
Um, so stage opens and we see George on a with a blank canvas, and he says those words, and then slowly in the pro shot production, the painting starts coming alive on stage,
Hmm.
and then enter Dot. George is sitting in the corner painting, doing and sketching her, and she comes out and she stands still and she is his model. Dot is his significant other, and his main model for all of his muse, we'll say his muse. Um, so then we learn that she models for him and how deeply in love she is with him. Um, and then we shift and find out that they were supposed to go, they're going to go to the Follies that night, but he's going to stay back and she's going to go home and get ready. Um, and so he sits back and he goes and he sits with his mother, who he's paid for a nurse to take care of, and he paints his mother, or he sketches his mother. um and the nurse is a very lovely, fun character, and Caitlin and I would love to watch you play the nurse. I think it would be so fun. Notably the line of uh i I pay I get paid to take care of his mother, which pays for the nurse who takes care of mine. I think that is hilarious. Um, Great. And I am trying to do this without the synopsis in front of me. So if there's anything I leave out, please throw me a bone.
Will
Um,
do. I will do my best, but you
cool.
you know this show better than I do.
Fair. There's so many moving parts in it. So,
Yeah.
Um, so was that
Hello?
you?
No.
Okay. So anyway, oh, I think it was me. Hold on one second. I don't want it to
No.
happen again.
Oh no, take your time. Do what you gotta do.
It was. Oh, Christina Bianco just said hello. She's typing. Okay, I'm gonna
Okay.
mute Facebook. Okay.
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 Ooh.
She said yes. Oh my God. Yo.
Honestly, that's so exciting.
This is why you have to have the fucking balls to ask.
Yeah, true.
Damn. Isaac rejected it. Well,
Isaac
ghosted us,
ghosted us.
but it's okay. I understand.
No longer friend of the podcast, enemy of the podcast.
Sam, we gotta edit all of that out, okay?
Yeah. Oh no, don't worry. It'll be.
It's gone. It's gone.
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. So that is amazing and exciting, and we will talk about it later.
Yes.
Okay. Back in on so Dot is told to go get ready for the Follies, and George is gonna be gonna go sketch his mother, who's also at the park. Specifically on a Sunday. This is all happening on Sunday. Sunday is everyone's day off. Everyone's at the park on this big open field. Then George starts to sketch these dogs that are at the park, and we see a way into his mind of how he begins to sketch, and he tries to look at the object from their point of view and get inside of their brain. So we have this really beautiful and fun song about it's called The Day Off, and he looks at the dog and he starts sketching the dog as George, and then all of a sudden he switches and he starts mimicking what the dog would say if the dog had a voice. And then he does 3 different dogs, and it's a super interesting song. This is not a show that you can just like listen to and get the story.
No.
You cannot figure it out. It is bizarre in that way. Yeah, you will not get the story if you just try to like sit and listen. So anyway, that's a little cue into how he as an artist works. Then we go back to his home, and he is painting the giant canvas. And we see that Bernadette Peters' character Dot is getting ready to go to the Follies, and she's super duper excited about it. And we get a cue into like what she feels for him and how deeply her love is for him. And her biggest romantic feelings come from looking into his eyes and how deep and how much there is behind his eyes that she doesn't even get to see.
Yeah.
Then George comes out and he has a similar moment of saying, she's just sitting there looking. What does she see behind those big eyes and that cream skin? Like, what does she see looking at herself in the mirror? Does she see me like I do? Does she see her? Wait a minute. Does she see herself like I see her? Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at her like a piece of art, basically.
Yeah.
And then she says, George, should I wear my red dress or my blue dress? And he says, red, of course. And then she said, are you going to get ready? And he says, for what? And she says, the Follies, George. And he says, I have to finish the hat. And which he means in the painting. He's finishing a very specific hat on a specific person in the painting. And she gets angry and leaves, obviously. So then we have this very specific moment of him looking at the painting, working on the painting. And we have this theme that happens throughout the whole piece of the like, that's the musical theme. And it's him painting the dots onto the painting.
Mm-hmm.
And in this moment, we hear him doing the different colors, red, blue, red, orange, whatever it is. And then stops halfway and is caught off guard by his frustrations with hurting Dot. But at the same time, he says it's not about his frustrations. It's more about, is she just going to sit in the corner and sulk, or is she going to actually go without me? So he's cognizant of people's emotions, but he's so wrapped up in his work that he doesn't explore them. right?
Mhm.
Um, and he doesn't see Dot like he sees the dog or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, um, Bernadette Peters, I'm sorry, I keep doing that. Dot leaves him. We don't see it on stage. But she ends up, a big thing that I left out is that she can't read. And George continues to remind her that she can't read. Um, so then she leaves him and then she starts to learn how to read. And she gets this grammar book that she keeps working in and she practices her grammar at the park on Sundays. She also ends up starting to date this baker named Louis, and she has this great song about everybody loves Louis. He is the greatest guy. He's so sweet, but that's the problem. There's nothing wrong with Louis. He is just great, and there's nothing else about him. He's just good. Um, ends up getting married to him, um, and they're going that she ends up telling George, um, I'm gonna move to America with Louis because these two southern tourists in France, the whole thing is set in France. I don't think I mentioned that. Um, these two southerner tourists come in and they are hilarious. They might be my favorite people in the show. Um, they come in and they say, oh, I nothing Paris is nothing like I thought it was going to be. I just want to go home. This place is not as fun as I wanted it to be, but the pastries are delicious. So let's bring a pastry chef home with us. And so they hire Louis and Dot end up going to America, or they're going to go to America because of it. Then we find out that George is aware of Dot learning grammar and being at the park and all these things. But then we have this introspective song where he is painting and he is at the park again and he sings Finishing the Hat, which is one of the greatest songs from the show. If you know this show, you probably know this song.
Mhm.
And It's a moment of introspection where he decides that it's Dot's fault that for leaving. He says, yes, she looks for me. Let her look for me to tell me why she left me. I knew she would never understand, but she always said she would, but no one ever understands. So we get a little view into how he views humans, I guess. Um, but it's a great soliloquy-esque song, I would say. Um, and so then we continue on, and Dot comes up to him out of nowhere after she's decided to get married to Louis, and turns out she's pregnant, and it's George's baby. And it's clear that it is because of, I guess, the time frame that Louis and her got together. Um, but George refuses to accept that it's his, like in the sense of, yes, it's my biological child, but I'm not gonna do anything for it because like you left me,
Yeah.
like whatever, men. Um, and she goes over to his home and says, "I'm so sorry, but it's good to see you. I am leaving for America very, very soon." And he's like, "Well, when?" And she goes, "After the baby's born, we're gonna leave." And he said, "Okay, fine." And he's still not finished with the painting. And she's like, "I'd like to have that painting that you painted of me." And he said, "I didn't know you had a painting that was yours." And she goes, "You painted it for me." And he goes, I don't know what you're talking about. It's mine. You can't have it." And so then she goes to leave, but then some art curators are coming in to look at the big painting that is the main character of our play.
Mhm.
Um, and it's a man and his wife, and they've been spying on him the entire time, watching him do his work. The man comes in and Dot stays because the two of them were about to have an argument. And we find out that the art curator's wife is not happy with her marriage and that that she is very envious of Dot because Dot is in all of George's paintings. She's a model, and Dot said it's not all it's cracked up. It's not all it's cracked up to be. Like, don't be hard on yourself. I'd rather not, or something along those lines. And then we find out that the art curator is not interested in George's work, and then we get this wonderful line. George looks at his painting and he says, none of the he only uses primary colors, I believe is what he says. I can't remember for sure. If you're an art history major, come at me, it's fine, I'd like to learn. But he doesn't use any blacks or blues. Our eyes are perceiving colors because of the way the colors mix with the dots. And so he says this beautiful line of, there are fixed laws for colors like music. And I was like, that's why I wrote a musical about it right there, right? That line, fixed laws for colors like music. I love that so much. And so the art curator says, you're crazy. This is like not art. Like, we're not into it. We're not going to buy it. Like, whatever. Leaves. And of course, George is defeated, whatever. Then Dot is still there and says, George, I'm leaving for America. And he goes, why are you coming to tell me this? And she says, I told you because I thought you would care to know, but foolish of me because you care about nothing, only things. And they get in this huge fight. She tells him, we do not belong together. We never did. And she leaves. I know, it's a beautiful and sad song, and it's so great. Beautiful. And then he goes back to the park, and then he's painting and frustrated, and then he says, order, something, and harmony. I forget what the second word is. Order, composition, harmony. And those are his, like, we learn later that those are his, like, that's like his mantra, his like meditative state, or when that's how he gets to his like most artistic self. And then we have all of the characters coming together on stage that are in the painting, and he sets them up in this beautiful array, and we hear the title song of the show, Sunday, which is this peaceful like choral number. And then play ends, and he's finished with the painting. Lights up on second act. I'm going to speed through this one because there's not nearly as much that happens, right?
Yeah.
Second act, we are in modern day America.
It's been 100 years.
Yeah,
since Act
One. Been 100 years. So we are modern time, specific for when it was written, but it's 1980s. And we see George, not George Surratt, but George's lineage, presenting his artwork for a modern audience, and how he is connected to George Surratt through his lineage. And it's a like laser art show, which as a young kid I was like, what happened? How did we get here? But anyway, we learned that he is his great grandson, I believe. And his grandmother, Marie, played by Dot, or played by whoever plays Dot is more of what I should say, is there and helping read the cards that are describing her life. And we find out, is the daughter of George Surratt. And it's his grandmother. The electricity, for some reason, doesn't work. And then we have this great line of the curator, played by the curator from the first act, who is like very excited about this George's work, comes out and talks to the audience and says, well, no electricity, no art. Which again, I'm like, I think that is something that's very important to what Sondheim is saying about modern theater. No electricity, no art. And they eventually get it back running. It's fine. It's a success. And then we're after the curation show, and it's in the like networky part where everyone's drinking in the art studio and we're all discussing things, and we get the big beautiful song that the wonderful Barbara Streisand covered at one point, putting it together. And it is about how art isn't easy because of the aspects of having to hear everyone's opinions about what you do, bit by bit putting it together. And we see George putting himself in everyone's positions, and we get these like awesome like cardboard cutout versions of himself that he puts around the stage as he's singing, and there's certain people he can't put it up against because of the conversation that's happening. It's so cool. It's so cool. I love that scene so much.
Oh,
um
yeah.
oh my god, I love that scene. And then we get everyone goes to like the dinner that's happening, and we learn that he doesn't like this part of the art. He wants to leave, he wants to go home, so he's going to take Marie home. But we get this lovely song before she goes home. Her memory is fading, and she sits with George and says, you know, the two things that we leave on this earth after we go are children and art. And she has this beautiful song about children and art, and she's singing to the painting, but specifically to Mama, saying how much she would have loved her grandson George. Like, he makes things and she's like, I don't understand it, but they're beautiful, and there's color and light, and it's amazing to see. Just a very wholesome song, right?
Yeah.
um and beautiful. um he ends up taking her home, and then we come back up and we are in France again, but we are still in modern time. We find out that Marie has passed away, and that is Dot's daughter, that has passed away and was unable to come to France to put this artwork that we saw at the top of Act Two in the field where George Seurat painted the classic painting. She wanted so badly to come, and we learned that she was unable to because she passed away. But she has the book, the grammar book that we mentioned earlier, and it's like a family heirloom, and it has notes on George, the George Seurat, saying like how much she loved him, and that she witnessed him like painting in the park after they broke up, blah blah blah. And that's important because it's very unclear who Dot in the painting actually is, and that's really our only realistic clue. And this is historically, it's like our only realistic clue of like who she actually is. We don't know if she was a fictional person or actually a muse of his.
Hmm.
But that is like, the only thick evidence, and it's not really good evidence. But he has the book with him, and he completely challenged her on it, being like, sure, it might be, but we can't physically say that, right? We can't physically say that, like, yes, George Surratt is my dad. We don't know. um but Marie's like, I know, and it's true. But he's in the park, and Dot appears, because he is like, I don't know, like, this piece of art took me so much and I didn't actually want to do it. I'm ready to do something different, but I don't know what to do. I want to do something that comes from me, that is new and it's exciting, and I want to do what I love, but I don't know what that is. I want to do something that it will have me be remembered. Dot comes on because they're in the park and sings the beautiful song Move On, saying, you can't create something if you're trying to control it. You just have to let it come through you, and it will be new because it comes from you. Ooh, I love
I
that.
know. Oh,
I love it. I know. And so it's a really, really interesting moment, and a comment on artists in general. Um, and then we have his mother, his George Surratt's mother, also comes on and says, I was always so in love with your art, or whatever. And then the painting, everyone from the painting comes back on stage, and the last, and they slowly sing Sunday, the title song again. They all come together, they stand in the artwork form, and then they slowly leave. And George is in control of what is happening, and he slowly reads to the end of the book, and then we see that Dot has written in the book a blank canvas, a blank canvas. Basically, I can't remember the quote exactly,
It's
but
I actually have it pulled up.
oh, beautiful, thank you.
White, a blank page or canvas, his favorite. So many possibilities.
And that's the end of the show. It's
I
I left out a lot of plot, but that is like the integral pieces of the plot, and
yeah.
it's a lot.
I mean, there's so much.
So much.
Before we get into discussion, I have to pee. So
Okay.
I'm gonna run and do that. I will be right back. But I have so many thoughts, obviously, because look at it.
Yeah, look at it, look at it, look at it.
This podcast won't run a week with Kat and SLee.
Okay. I hope that sounded intelligent and not
Oh yeah. No, I think it sounded very intelligent.
okay.
The few things, or like really the one thing that I think is important in the show that you didn't touch on is excuse me, so dry in here. George's mother in Act 1 comments on how the park is changing and how she can't find her tree because it is changing.
That's fair. Yep.
And then in I don't know why I think this is important, but like then in Act 2,
It's very important.
when he goes to the park looks entirely different because it has been modernized and there are like
It's covered in
skyscrapers and buildings, and it's not the wide open natural area that it used to be. And
well, and they say there's a specific line that they say this is the only open part of this clearing. Like this section is the only part now.
yeah, which I think is really interesting. I have so many thoughts on this show. One of my first thoughts, because I watched this for the first time about a week ago. I had listened to like the hits, little putting it together, finishing the hat, Everybody Loves Louie, but I had never like sat down and watched the full show because honestly I was a little intimidated by it, especially in high school, because I was worried that if I did not understand the show then I was like a lesser artist, which is not true, but that's how I felt. But reading up on it before watching it, I was struck with this feeling of a little bit of annoyance because of Bernadette Peters' like role in the show. In Act 1, she plays George's like lover, and then in Act 2 she's a grandma, and it's like there's no in between for women. You're either like throwing your cat around, being a lover, a sexy woman, or you're a grandmother. And I don't even necessarily think that this is Sondheim's fault, but I think that it does reflect something that I see a lot in breakdowns for shows and things like that. Like men get to be middle-aged and still be like free to pursue their things, but women don't get that. And that's something that immediately struck me.
I actually like that's something really big that I wanted to chat about because I definitely see where you're going with that, and I'm in agreement with that. But I think the whole basis of this show is not so much how the world perceives humans, it's how George Surratt perceived everyone around him. So I don't think that we fully got to see anyone in their actual what am I trying to say? I don't think we got to see anyone in their full actualities of themselves. Does that make sense?
No, I think I totally agree with you there. I was doing some reading, and a lot of people think that George Surratt, at least as he is portrayed in this show, is someone who is on the spectrum.
I think he's asexual. I have said that.
Well, I don't mean the sexual spectrum. I mean,
I'm bringing that into the space.
Oh,
I think that he is asexual.
He could very well be asexual, but when I say the spectrum, I mean the autistic spectrum.
Right. Yes.
Just so that's clear to the audience. I mean, he could very well be asexual. I mean, he obviously had sex with Dot because they have a child together.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily, just because that they
Sure.
had sex doesn't mean that he isn't asexual.
Sure. I'm just for the sake of pointing that out. I mean, he could be asexual, but I do agree with your earlier point where we don't really get to see who these characters actually are because we're seeing them through his lens. Like the whole show is through George's lens, even in Act 2.
Well, I was always very confused with the section in the opening song that Dot sings called Sunny in the Park with George. And I don't think that's the title song. I know it actually is the title song, but I think the song Sunday is the title song. It is about the painting. It is about the painting, about the people within the painting, whatever. Mm-hmm. That's why I was very specific about calling that the title song. Anyway, Sunny in the Park with George, the song. We see all of this through Dot's perspective. We start the show with it. Like, she's so angry. It's so hot outside. She is just standing there and her thoughts are racing, and she's really struggling to focus and concentrate, like George keeps telling her. But then she breaks out of the dress, and then she's dancing around. And I've always struggled to understand the section in that part when she goes to George and she says, "Your eyes, George. I love your eyes, George. Your size, George. I love your beard, George. But most of all, I love your paintings." Mm-hmm. I have never understood that section, because I'm like, you love his paintings most of all? I don't think so. Based on everything else that happens in the play, I don't think that's true. And finally last night, I answered my own question. I was like, that's not her. That is his perception of her. Mm-hmm. That in that section, that is our first view into how differently he sees everyone else from their actual human selves, which ties into, and I want to talk about this. Yeah. You specifically, what do you think the theme of this show is? What is the overall message? In Sondheim shows specifically, there is always a hidden message that they're trying to portray, and it's usually in a song lyric. And I'm curious what you think it is, because I don't have an answer.
Yeah, I feel like it could be a lot of things, honestly. Like, there are a lot of ideas and themes that are discussed in this. The biggest one for me that I got from watching it is this idea of choosing as an artist, because I think the whole show is like through the lens of an artist. Do you follow the trends of the time and do that because that's what is popular and that's what people want to see? Or do you ultimately follow your own path? And like, which do you choose, and how does that decision affect your life? Because George in Act 1 chose to follow his own path. He chose, like, there's the scene where the art critic, his the guy who'd been spying on him, comes in and he basically tears this like painting that we now see as like famous and incredible. He tears it apart. He's like, why are you painting like this? Like, it makes no sense. Like, what are you doing? This is dumb. And George decides to continue on that path, even though he did that, and none of his paintings were ever appreciated in his life. None of them. No one gave single shit.
He never sold. Well, he never even sold a painting.
Yeah.
In his very short life. And it's I didn't mention this, but he died at a very young age.
He's 31.
That's how Act I thought it was, well, yeah. His that's how Act 2 starts.
Yeah, it starts with all of the characters are still in their like tableau of the painting, and they're all talking about like, oh, it's hot up here, like this is uncomfortable, and they start talking like that. But then each of them gives like a eulogy moment for George, talking about how he has died.
So with that in mind, the
Mhm.
eulogy, no one has any specifics about him
No.
with the eulogy, which is what ties into my theme. I think what you're saying is absolutely like a step there, but I think it's more specific to second act George than first act George.
Oh, I agree. And I had a little more I wanted to say about my
Sorry.
idea on it's okay. We started talking about other things. But Act 1 George essentially encapsulates this idea that like follow your own path, and like that's what you should do as an artist. And then Act 2 George, he starts off following like the trends. Like he's making things that he doesn't feel passionately about because that's what people want him to do. And whereas Act 1 George, terrible at networking, terrible at talking to people about his art, just not good. But Act 2 George, he does it so easily, and he understands how to get people interested in his work and wanting to buy his work. Um, and so he follows the trends, even though ultimately that does not fulfill him as an artist. And so I think that by the end of the show, we see his realization of I need to like follow my own path, and I need to create the things that I want to create. And being at the park, and connecting with, Dot there with the grammar book, I think it all kind of allows him to become more clear on what his own artistic pursuits are and should be.
So I think that is, I think that's absolutely correct. I think my idea of the theme is even like a little bit step further away from art itself, because I think one of the biggest downfalls of both Georges is their fixation on art itself. And I think what everyone has continued to say to him is look up from your painting and look at the world for what it is and not what you perceive it as, because then your art will open up. But you're so fixated on your own version of everything, like, being connected to George Seurat is second act George. Is like, okay, I have to do all of this stuff for him because that's what I'm connected to, or modern, or technology, modern art. I have to be connected to all of this, but it's not what he wants. But he can't get his head out of his own ass, and like putting it together is all about him not listening to anyone that he comes in contact with. It's just, I don't even want to be here. I don't want to hear you talk about my shit. It's like, I don't want to talk about it. It's like people are trying to have conversations with you. Who knows what's going to come out of that? And I think that him putting those cardboard cutouts of himself, although it's a very funny stage gag, it is very important to how George does act in a conversation. He's not actually conversating. He's just standing there. You might as well have a cardboard cutout, right? And it's introspective on both sides. Like it's both. It's that's how he feels, and that's how he's perceived, and that's what happened, and that's what ends up happening. George Seurat in first act, doesn't understand that he was not giving enough to Dot or his mother or anyone that he was painting. Everyone was just models. No one was humans in his eyes. No one had emotions other than the ones he gave them. So I believe that this is a love letter to all artistic mediums, not just visual art itself. and discussing their complexities on the loneliness of an artist, and when the artists themselves focus on only their art and doesn't love the world for what it is. It's asking artists to let go of controlling and allow it to, quote, flow through you through to something new, something that is you. And to just keep moving.
Yeah.
With that, I think that George is a autobiographical version of Stephen Sondheim.
I was absolutely just about to say that. No, 100%. 100%. And
especially knowing that Merrily We Roll Along ended in such a drastic way and he was ready to quit.
Yeah.
It's like him reminding himself of just keep going.
And I think that you can see that in a lot of places. Obviously, I mean, he wrote a book called Finishing the Hat.
Yep.
Like, and then and it's like a coffee table book where he talks about like lyrics and stuff, but then the sequel is Look, I Made a Hat. Like, I think it's very clear, but even aside from that, George in both Act 1 and Act 2 don't have romantic relationships, not truly. In Act 1, like, he's with Dot, but there's clearly not an understanding there.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Act 2, George is divorced.
Yeah.
George is divorced, and like, she's there, but she's not a part of it.
No. We barely even hear her speak.
Exactly. Like, she says like 4 lines in the whole act. And they're almost all, if I'm remembering correctly, about Marie and like taking care of Marie. And I mean, if you look at Sondheim's life, he's incredibly private, which is, totally fine, but as from what I can gather from my research, he's not had like a serious romantic relationship for most of his life. Yeah. Like a partner was not something that he had. And
well, now look at the partner he has, a young man.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I mean, it's like it's like something to, I mean, I don't know the complexities of their relationship, but like,
of course,
arm candy,
Well, I mean, it could be a lot of things, but I think that it's just very, with Sunday in the Park with George specifically, I think we get to see his views on art, his views on relationships, his views on having to, the unfortunate necessary part of being an artist is having to listen to people critique your art.
Yeah.
And unless you got something nice to say, like, I don't want to hear it. Tell me I'm great or don't talk to me, but once you're on the level that Sondheim is on, especially after Merrily We Roll Along, I think that I completely agree. I think this is like it's an emotional autobiography more so than like an actual, this is my life.
And I think it's very therapeutic, which is why words like meditative come through.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, I want to talk about the song Sunday.
Yeah.
Specifically. Because it comes out of nowhere in the first act and it feels a little discombobulated and like, why are we, I mean, it's directly after We Do Not Belong Together, this heartbreaking number and the screaming match basically. And then it's the finale of Act 2 and Act 1, I'm sorry. And it just feels not in the right place until you look at the show through this lens of a meditative state that an artist puts themselves in. Like, I don't know, did you see the movie Soul that came out?
I have not watched it yet, but it is something I plan to watch.
Well, they talk a lot about like your soul, like kind of when you're in a state of, I forget what they call it exactly. There's a word they use, but it's basically the like, where like you just are in the zone like that, right? Your soul is in between the human world and where souls go after you die. You're in that middle ground. And you just it's that kind of like floating meditative focus and concentration that can only come if you aren't forcing it to happen and if you lose control, which is the craziest. Like, maybe this is like why I think this is the theme, because this is like actively what I'm working on in my art. And it is transformed how I do things, but to lose control of something so you have control over it is like the craziest thought process, but it's true. It's exactly how you have to do it. But I think that the song Sunday, especially with the word harmony, I mean, think about the harmonies in that song. They are very interesting, but they are melodic in ways that Sondheim does not usually write his pieces as melodic as that song is. And it's one of those, it's harmonies that make your bones hurt, like you feel them in your bones, and they're overwhelming. So it's like this, it feels to me that this is what happens for George Seurat or Sondheim or an artist in general. It's a meditative state, and the harmony and the peace that comes from being in that meditative state when all the world is turned off and you are just with the thing you love most, which then makes sense why after he got in the fight with her, he immediately went to like finish his painting.
Yeah. Well, he has the fight with her, and then like even while he's like setting up to finish the painting, we see all of the characters who are within the painting, and they're all arguing, and it's loud, and it's confusing, and there's just so much happening. And then his mother shouts, "Remember, George."
Yeah.
And then he stops everything. It's like he immediately has control over the situation. And it's the shift from just the like no 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 to just peace.
Yeah.
I think it's incredibly telling of the way Sondheim views his own artistic process.
I agree.
And I think it's great. I think
that this show was not as successful as things like Into the Woods or Sweeney Todd because it is truly a love letter to artists themselves and not just the spectators of art.
I agree.
And so it's not for it's not for a spectator. It is for other artists to come in and have an understanding and a meditative moment and learn the lesson of let go, just let go, and just enjoy it. Like enjoy the ride. Like you're not going to enjoy the life that you have. I mean, which is what soul is about. Like you're not going to enjoy your life if you continue on this path of trying to control everything and have it be your way or nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, again, no one had hardly anything to say about George Seurat when he died because no one actually knew him. They only knew him through, he was always painting.
Yeah, like even his own mother, like she says, like, a mother never wants to outlive her child, but
that's all I got to say.
Yeah,
that's all I have.
Yeah, I mean, for listeners, if you have not seen it, there is like a full YouTube recording that you can watch. That's what I watched. Or you know what?
But it is the pro shot.
Yeah, it's the pro shot.
Yeah.
And I just
it is really worth the watch. I also think Mandy Patinkin and Bernadette Peters are at the height of their talents. Like Mandy Patinkin in particular, Bernadette Peters is brilliant. But
Mhm.
Mandy Patinkin, like the role of George is so complex and there are so many moving parts and there is so much to this man. And then there's two of them, right? It's like there you have to it's just it is a beast of a role, and
Mhm.
Mandy Patinkin makes it look easy, and
Oh,
it is not.
no.
Um, also, his octave range is 2 full octaves in
Yeah.
just in the show. Like, I'm
Mhm.
not saying I know what Mandy Patinkin's octave range is, but, like, George's octave range is 2 full octaves.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, if all of that is not enough to convince you to watch this show, like our whole conversation up to this point, Mandy Patinkin is a full snack
yeah, he's real
in
hot.
that he especially, I mean, look, act 1 with the beard, I love it, but act 2,
He is a 1980s dream.
yeah, yeah.
Do
He
you know who else is really hot in it? Is
who?
the guy who plays Cinderella's prince, and he
Yes,
plays a soldier.
he
He
surely is.
he is the epitome of the 1980s. Like,
But let me tell you, Mandy Patinkin walked on for act 2 and I said, I do have a type. I do. I
yes, you do.
100% have a type. Um, and I will not be taking questions.
I will not be taking questions.
Um,
Um,
yeah, I
did you know that? Let's talk about as we transition from
yeah.
the show into the Dreamcast.
Mhm.
Let me buffer that transition with let's talk about the people who are in the original cast.
Let's do it.
Did you know that Nancy Opal is the is Frida the cook, who is the woman that is being cheated on by her husband in the first act, and she has an accent.
I
I
did.
think she's Polish or something,
Yeah.
or German, maybe German. But and in the second act, she is like the artistic like she's like in a 1980s like very classic 1980s like, oh, I'm an artist and I look really cool, and she had a scarf on her head. Like, that's Nancy Opal, mama.
I
That is
had
that is Miss Pennywise. That is Privilege to Pee. That is Our Lady.
I had no idea. Also, I just pulled it up. Um, I feel bad. I have to apologize to Sam because when I watched it last week, the little girl, he was like, "Oh, is that Little Red?" And I was like, "I don't think so." It is. It
It
is.
is?
It is Little Red. From the original cast of Into the Woods.
Whoa.
So let's just take stock of who moved from this show to Into the Woods because there's a couple.
There's a
There's,
lot.
I mean, there's Little
The
Red,
mother plays
the
Jack's mother.
Bernadette, obviously,
Obviously.
Cinderella's prince.
Yeah.
Um,
Robert Westenberg is his
ugh,
name.
yes,
He's so good too. But I've never known his name. But yeah, he's super talented and super sexy.
yeah,
Um,
like it's
is the girl who played um Celeste, I think her name is. She's one of the two women who date the soldiers.
mm-hmm.
Is she Rapunzel?
No,
No? Okay.
no, but I mean they could
He
move on
probably
to
played
that.
Rapunzel somewhere, yeah.
Yeah,
Or Joanna.
it's this is a great show.
Yeah.
And it's just so interesting. I love looking at like original casts of shows from like the 80s because you can find some real treats in there,
Yep.
as I'll get into in our next episode.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so I think let's get into our dreamcasts. I think.
Oh, yes.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh. All
I
right.
want to just say this, and I'll
Mhm.
say this in our next episode too. This Sondheim shows are hard to do Dreamcast for,
Yeah.
especially the early works.
Mhm.
It's just difficult.
Yeah.
So let's just get into it.
Yeah. If you disagree, don't.
You can at me. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right. So we're focusing more on George and Dot because there are so many characters, but I do have 2/3. You'll see why I say it like that.
Mhm.
Characters that I just want to mention. Like, I would love to see these people play them. Okay, for George,
Mhm.
Dave Malloy.
Mama, I didn't even think of him. I love that.
How freaking interesting would that be?
So interesting.
So interesting. I would love to see. Well, okay, so this is the thing, right? With
Mhm.
George and Dot, I think the original cast is literally untouchable.
Oh yeah.
Like which is I think another reason why people don't do this show is just it was so perfectly done that I'm not really interested in anyone else. Like just because I'm like, yeah, I feel full. I feel very full after watching that version.
Mhm.
I will say I did watch Jake Gyllenhaal. I worked the bar when at the City Center version of it. And so I got to see him. I didn't get to see the full show, but I saw a lot of it. And Jake Gyllenhaal was insanely good as George.
Yeah.
I did not like Annalee Ashford though.
That's fair. I like Annalee Ashford in general.
I do too.
And I want to like her in everything I see her do, but even just like listening to that cast recording, I was kind of underwhelmed.
Yeah. And because again, you were so insanely full after watching Bernadette Peters and Mandy Patinkin like teach you a master class in how to do Sondheim that you're
Yeah.
just like not interested in like anyone else's portrayal. I'm like, yeah, they were so emotionally invested and they knew it was just watching two people just live on stage. Like
Mhm.
I mean, I don't want anyone else.
Yeah.
That's why I struggle with this.
Yeah.
So I say Dave Malloy as someone where it's like it has to be so different that I want to be like interested in their version of it. Like I would be very interested to hear Dave Malloy sing Finishing the Hat.
Yeah. I mean, he's got such an interesting voice as
And he is
well.
the composer. So like
Mhm.
I mean, I saw him in Great Comet and he was insane. It was so good and it was so I mean, it was like a love letter to his show. So I
Yeah.
feel like it would be a similar feel, you know, of like it
Yeah.
would be a very interesting version, I think.
Look, you don't have to convince me to put
Yeah.
Dave Malloy in anything or to do any Dave Malloy.
Yeah. I love Dave Malloy.
Mhm.
Joshua Henry,
Mhm.
Norm Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, of course.
A young Norm Lewis as George would be
Beautiful.
brilliant.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay,
Okay, let's hear it.
I was like, where do I put this person in this show? Because they should fit in this show, but I don't know where they go. And then I realized it's because I'm looking at their gender and I needed to take that away.
Mhm.
And then I found the perfect part for them. Patty LuPone as George.
I mean, of course.
But like
Of course.
Patty is not a Dot.
No. No,
Right?
she's
So
not.
it's
Not
like,
ever.
no, Patty's just not a Dot. So
Mhm.
it's like, so where does she go? But
Mhm.
she's in this show. Her energy is right for the show. But I don't want to see her play the mother. Like that'd be like not a great part for her. Like
No.
she could do it, but boring, you know? It's like, come
Yeah.
on, give her something. So I'm like, where? She would be a fantastic George.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But
Sing the shit out of that part too. She would
yeah.
murder the role.
And like something I didn't appreciate about Patty in like high school that I really appreciate now as an adult is how like vocally she's insane. Like her
Yeah.
vocals are crazy. It's very easy to do an impression of her because she's so specific in her singing style, but her acting is
Oh yeah.
always so grounded
Yeah.
and
Well,
just
she went to Juilliard.
I mean,
for acting.
of course. Duh.
Like,
But I didn't appreciate that about her when I was younger, and now as an adult, I'm like, yeah. Like
well, I got the privilege of getting to see her as Mama Rose in
Look.
Gypsy. So I was like, who the hell is this woman and why does she come in here and just wipe the floor with all of us? Like none of us are worthy of her Mama Rose performance. We're not worthy. Like,
No. And like, look, someday,
I guess,
someday it'll happen again. I'm sure of it. I just am so sure that she'll do it again.
oh yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and
yeah.
maybe then I can be Louise with her. Oh man, could you imagine being her Louise?
You mean like the greatest gift that an actor could ever be given, to play opposite of Patti LuPone as her role that she was born to play, and be like,
Uh,
great, so I'm just gonna be warm and then I'm gonna show up. I don't have to do acting work because you are gonna do all of it for me,
yeah.
because I am just going to react off of the juice that you give me, and I promise it'll be correct.
Oh my God. Yeah.
All
No.
you have to do is show up with someone like her. I mean, we want a challenge, but for her Louise, oh
Oh.
mama. Oh God, and imagine the scene where she finally stands up to her to Mama Rose right before Rose's turn. The competitive, the tiger-like energy, the lioness energy that you need to have to overwhelm Patty fucking LuPone, and to be believable and be like, no, I'm standing my fucking ground, you crazy bitch. Like,
Yeah. Look, my favorite scene to do in the show, if I'm
of
being
course.
honest. I mean, it's the. We'll do a gypsy episode. We'll do it, and I did it, so I have a lot of thoughts. But
Yeah.
I mean, someday I'll get to see her as Mama Rose.
Yeah. God. Stop taking pictures.
Uh,
Okay. So Patty LuPone.
yes.
Should I hear yours or should I keep going?
I mean, do you have any more Georges that you wanted to
No.
bring up? Okay, let me do my Georges, and then
Great.
we'll move on to Dot. So for me, I was very confused. It's like, I don't know where to go with any of this.
Yeah.
It's funny that you bring up Dave Malloy, because one of my first thoughts was, I like to see Josh Groban do it. Look, is Josh Groban an actor first? No. But
Carnegie Mellon for musical theater, though.
He really nailed Pierre for me. And I think that no one will ever touch Mandy Patinkin, ever. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. You're just not. But I think that he would do a very good job. So he was like my gut reaction.
Here's what I'll say to that.
Mm-hmm.
I would be very excited for his concert version of it.
Fair. That's totally fair. He was just like my initial gut reaction. Yeah. Following up, I have some weird choices. I will preface by saying that. Ramin Karimloo.
I would be interested in his concert version. I do not think he is a good actor.
Oh, that's so interesting.
I saw him as Jean Valjean, sang the shit out of the role.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
But nothing really to write home about acting wise, in my opinion.
Following up, I also have Leslie Odom Jr.
I almost put him in there too. I really almost did. And I don't know.
I think that he has the acting chops to handle the role.
I think so too. Maybe it's because I've just never seen him in a role that is
I mean, like, Aaron Burr has a very authoritative energy that George doesn't have.
Right. That's exactly what I was struggling with. I was like, I don't know the word to say, because I was gonna say, like, because George is not. Again, I don't have the right words, like, because I can see why the two would blend, but there's also something for me that I'm like, I don't necessarily know if I can picture it. Not to say that I wouldn't go see it, because I would.
Yeah. I mean, he was another choice I have. I also have Raul Esparza. I mean, mama. Duh. Of course.
I love him.
Me too. And then, just for fun, I don't know that it would be good, but for fun, Konstantin Maroulis.
Ew. No.
But tell me you would not go see it.
I wouldn't go see that.
I would absolutely. I'd be like, whatever the ticket price is, let me go see that.
I would not.
I think Constantine is a better vocalist than people give him credit for.
Okay, but that's not why I'm going to see this show.
But I really liked him in what I've seen of him in Jekyll and Hyde. So
That's fair.
but
okay.
it's very different. It's very different.
I will also say,
yeah.
Jekyll and Hyde, this is all I'll say.
Yeah.
Who else played Jekyll/Hyde? And I would not cast as George.
Anthony Warlow?
David Hasselhoff, you bitch.
But
another pro shot that I own.
But here's the thing. I was not unimpressed by David Hasselhoff. I think because I had
But that's my point. No, but that's my point though.
No, that's fair.
That I think you can do, but that doesn't mean that you can also do George.
I was
That's
like,
what I'll say.
Constantine would be like a fun treat.
Oh, sure.
Like
you can go see it. You can pay a high dollar, and I will go see my version with Patti LuPone.
I mean, I'll go see both.
Right.
So those are my choices.
Beautiful.
For George.
Beautiful. All right, Dot. I struggled with Dot.
Yeah.
Dot's a really, really hard role to cast.
Absolutely.
Jessie Mueller.
She's on my list.
Jessie Mueller's my number one.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know anyone else who could do it. And then I said a young Audra McDonald.
Yeah, I can agree with those. I also have Nikki M. James.
I don't love her. I see her in a couple things. I don't dislike her. I just don't love her. You know what I mean?
That's totally fair. I saw her in Twelfth Night via Shakespeare at the Park, and she was phenomenal. She was so good. And I understand that that's different, but because I saw her in that, I feel comfortable casting her as Dot.
That's fine. I saw her in Julius Caesar at Sunny in the Park. I mean, at Shakespeare in the Park. And I was like, yeah. Again, not bad.
No.
Not bad. I don't have any strong feelings in the sense of I don't like her, because I think she's great. She's obviously on Broadway for a reason and has done all this work for a reason, but I just wouldn't say that she is hell yeah. Nikki M. James, yeah.
I have her. I have Philippa Sue.
Oh, that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really, really good one.
Yeah, I think she would be very good. I also have Kate Baldwin.
Yeah. No, I can see Kate Baldwin doing this role.
Yeah.
Not on Broadway.
But a good regional production at the Muni. Yep. And then lastly, this is another wild card, but
Idina Menzel.
No. No, it's actually this Adele Dazeem.
Oh, of course. Excuse me.
No, this is a wild card, and I will totally admit that it seems a little out of nowhere, but Andrea Burns. Which you will know her from her portrayal as Daniela from In the Heights. The salon owner.
Oh. Why else do I know her name though? Something recent.
Well, she was in The Nance with Nathan Lane on Broadway.
Okay.
But I looked her up because I was like, I feel like she would be good, but I don't have anything to back it up. And
she's the one that goes, he's packing a stretch limousine.
Yeah. Yes. But I looked it up. She played Lucille Frank in the Parade National Tour.
Oh shit.
Mm-hmm. So the bitch can act. She was also
phenomenal in the Heights.
Oh, she's phenomenal. Also, Songs for a New World. She was in the original cast for that.
That right there is exactly what I know her from. I'm like, there's something very specific that I am thinking of. It's that.
Yes. So I think I I think that
Wow,
she would be
versatile.
not anyone's like first choice because they wouldn't think of her, but I think she would do a really great job.
I'd watch it.
Yeah.
I'd watch it.
Her and Raul Esparza.
Girl, I'd
Mama.
love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, are
Who
you
are-
ready for my throw in the pot ones?
Yes.
The mother, Elaine Stritch.
Of course. Who
Oh my
else?
God. I mean, who else? Who else?
Who else?
Who else? I would just love to see that. Like, for her to be like, that tree was not there before. You know? Yeah. No pants on.
No
'Cause
pants.
You're in the late 1800s. Where are your pants?
Why aren't you wearing a skirt?
Why aren't you wearing a skirt and heels? I'm Elaine Stritch with her. Okay, and the tourists
Yeah.
/ the patrons in the horny patrons, whatever.
Yeah.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy. The Southern tourists. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Absolutely. But as their characters from Waiting for Guffman.
Oh, sure. Yes.
Like,
yes. Man with a left foot. Yeah. I love that.
oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's it. That's
Oh my God. Yeah. And then for the rest of the cast, up and comers, Broadway debuts. Everyone else. Everyone.
I meant to text him, but I forgot, and I'll do it after this. But Mason Hensley has to play the soldier.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah.
I went to undergrad with a wonderful actor named Mason Hensley. Look him up on Instagram if you want. He is hilarious. He is very tall, and he sings like a dream. And he would be phenomenal as the soldier. Like I'm curious when he'll do it. You know what I mean?
No.
Not so much like if, but when.
He would be great. Oh.
Watching him have to deal with the prop of
the like cutout
version of himself would make my life.
But I would wonder, would they make the cutout as tall as he is, or would they be like shorter?
Oh, I hope shorter.
Like, or what? Or taller.
Taller would be. It's Shaquille O'Neal. The cutout is Shaquille O'Neal. Not even like a dot version of him. It's just a cardboard cutout of Shaquille O'Neal.
I love that.
I love it too.
There you go. Broadway. We have an idea for you.
Hello. Ring ding.
Ring-a-ling.
Dang.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think that's all. I think that's all for this episode.
So.
What a treat. Oh, so we'll have links to like performance.
I do want to say one thing that I didn't mention earlier. The set design of the original cast production is some of the most interesting. It does. I hesitate to even say like scene design. I want to say like artistic direction. Like the set itself is a character in the show, and it is so well done. And it is so interesting to watch for the entirety of the play. Like, it is so interesting. And it is the epitome of what I miss when I go see a show in today's contemporary world that has a digital backdrop.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Like, I completely agree.
Choke. Like, that is not how you do that shit. Like, the stage magic that happens in this show is just beautiful, and it's not fun watching it on a digital screen, which is why I also brought out that line of like no electricity, no art.
Yeah,
this is the epitome of what that is.
I mean,
I'd be interested to see like what that's the first thing I think of is Mean Girls.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see how this show would play to a contemporary audience with the digital screen as the second act.
Yeah. Like first act, it's all. Yep. Oh yeah. I mean, there we go. Broadway.
Yep. And when the electricity goes out, literally the entire stage goes out.
Yeah. No electricity, no art. Oh, I love that. Well, can't top that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
I'll be starting my own podcast. Don't
Bitch, no.
want to listen to it, but
That's it. So, thanks so much for listening, guys, and we will see you at our next episode, which is going to be Assassins. I can't wait. Everyone knows that old tune from Assassins.
You started talking over my gunshot, and that was the butt of the joke.
Oh well, pew pew, bitch. So, all right, that's enough.
Gotta have a dame.
Everybody's gotta have a working girl. All right, goodbye.
Yeah.
Say goodbye, SLee.
I don't wanna. It's not goodbye, it's see you soon.